Hello everybody, and welcome back to the good old high quality or highest quality that we can actually manage on this here camera with this here setup stream with me, Tom Colohue. We are going to be talking WWE Raw tonight, and tonight's Raw, even just for here in the UK, starting like an hour earlier here in the UK, which is why the streams might seem a little bit out of sync to what they normally are. Reason for that, of course, being that they are out of sync to what they normally are. We're going to be covering things a little bit differently, at least until daylight savings comes in the US. The two countries out of sync. We're just going to do the best we can and see what comes of it. So if you're a little bit out of the loop on this one, this is going to be the normal time. If you're in the US or elsewhere in the world, this will be the normal time now going forwards until daylight savings changes once again in the springtime. If you are in the US, then you have your own daylight savings coming in shortly, which means it will swap back again and go back to your normal scheduled time. But right now, for anywhere else in the world, this is what we will be getting used to going forwards. It's the same time for me, but it's an hour out anyway, because the same time is not quite the same time. We're in a wacky time dilation field, what can I say? Anand is here saying, hi Tom, good to see you, and good to see you too, Anand. Very good to see you. We're going to be covering WWE Raw tonight. We're also going to be doing the rumour look back, because why the hell not? And WWE Raw is built upon one simple match, which is why that one simple match is already our title. Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. That is going to open the show tonight for a match that's probably the biggest one that the Raw brand could put on right now. They're going to open Raw with it to try and guarantee that viewership, something that they've been struggling to do for a number of weeks. Just guarantee that people are definitely watching their show. This is the rebuild that they were looking for. The rebuild and the new intention, which hopefully for them means that having Seth and Becky at the very top of the divisions will ensure them a very bright future indeed. Bianca Belair is the obvious challenger for Becky Lynch going forwards. They are the two top women on Raw until the return of Alexa Bliss, and also potentially the return of Asuka a little bit further down the road. It's one of those matches. It's an all or nothing. What's going to happen here, I'm not sure. The WWE have previous in teasing us with big matches like this, and they're not quite delivering. I suspect this will be one of those moments where they tease us with something great and it just doesn't quite happen as we expect. Either it'll be a tag team match, it'll be a match that gets stopped and then finished later on. Maybe, just maybe, Charlotte Flair invades on the behalf of Smackdown. I would find that funny. I would find that very funny. Ed says, I'm so lost after all that. Yeah, it's a time difference. What time slot are we in the US now? Is it 1 p.m? Sorry, is it 2 p.m. I should say? I believe it's 2 p.m. over on Eastern time at the moment. I need to get into that habit because I need to be mentioning it for my shows. Anand says, can we see Bobby Lashley returning today, or will he be out for some time? He is taking a break, not necessarily an extended break. I suspect we will be seeing him shortly, but I don't think he'll make Survivor Series and will likely take a little time off until closer to the Royal Rumble or day one. There are no storyline plans in place right now for Bobby Lashley, just as there are no storyline plans in place for Edge. And I think when both of them do return, it will be closer to the big one, as it were. Royal Rumble is, after all, the big one, as we know. Ed says the WWE tweet is poorly worded. It says Lynch Belair, which isn't the best word of phrase. Yeah, it's not the best turn of phrase you could expect. They've let themselves down with that one a little bit. 2 p.m. Thank you, Ed. I'll get into the habit of that. I am expecting that my live streams will be a little less attended while people switch over, but thankfully it's not like we've gone to a different channel. This is Tom Colohue's FS1 moment, let's be honest. When the show goes to FS1 and it takes a little time for people to realise that that's the case. John says, hello Tom, saw Venom yesterday. I'll give my opinion on it during the watch party. Thank you, mate. Good call. Good call. The watch parties, for anyone who doesn't know, are just really chilled out. Just really chilled out. So a lot of people bring things into the watch parties slightly differently. I do have to apologise for not streaming at all yesterday. a lot happened yesterday. We had ourselves a Halloween party. And yeah, got a bit drunk. Met a few people. Stayed a bit too long. I stayed just long enough for the drama to start, you know. Nothing good happens after 1 a.m. The general rule is accurate. But in the end, most of Sunday, I unfortunately wasn't conscious. I think I needed it. I know I'm streaming less than I have done in the past, but I still work a full-time job, and honestly, I think I just needed yesterday off. I really do. I don't think you guys would blame me, but I wasn't awake for most of the day, so we just rolled with it, basically. We just rolled with it. And now I'm back to stay up until 3 a.m. Sean says, did you see what Top Dollar said about Roman? I did not. What did Top Dollar say about Roman? And was it Roman specifically? Was it actually Roman specifically? Or was it about the shoes? Because that's a different thing. Even though Roman, you know, his sneaker game apparently not the strongest. Let's see. Top Dollar. AJ Francis. Following. I'm not seeing anything. Has it been deleted? Has it been several days? Because nothing there at the moment. So I'm guessing I can only say I did not see it. Best way to describe it. Oh, Ed says, How I Met Your Mother says the rule is nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Yeah, well, I'm British. We go to bed slightly earlier because we're all a bit shit. And Anne says, Seth won the WWE Championship contract match last week. Do you think WWE will push Rollins versus Big E until we go to the episode of Survivor Series to create suspense regarding who will face Roman? Yes, I do. I think a lot of what we're seeing right now, including Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, is to create uncertainty as we head into Survivor Series. Survivor Series is one of those events, because of the way it's framed, where they like to play as much as possible with our emotions as to what might or might not happen. Ultimately, the only thing we can be absolutely confident of is that we're going to see champion versus champion. I still very much expect it's going to be Big E versus Roman, because I feel Big E needs Big E versus Roman. Big E needs a few matches where he's just absolutely at the top. Absolutely at the top. Sean says, Top Dollar said he jobbed to Roman, and when you're in the ring, you win. I mean, funny. I'll take it. Ed says, congrats to Speedball Mike Bailey going to Impact. A great signing. Indeed. Hopefully they've cleared up the fact that he can't legally work in the United States. Hopefully they found a way to get around that. And I can only hope that that's something good long term. It is a very good signing. I've seen Mike Bailey work in a Jungle Gym soft play area. So like a fun house. And he was just beating the ever-living shit out of his opponent in the typical Mike Bailey route. And it, you know, those things stand out because you'll never forget that moment when Mike Bailey kicks someone so hard they fly off the ring into a ball pit with a trampoline underneath, bounce on the trampoline, and come out on the other side. It's such good stuff, you know? So good. Love every second of it. Love every second of it. Seth versus Big E is going to be long term. After all, Seth Rollins is the big name. The one person who could legitimately challenge Big E at this level. But the WWE clearly believe that Big E needs a few scalps. Seth Rollins represents that scalp and will be very good in that role for further development of Big E and helping him reach the required levels as needs be. Big E has already beaten Bobby Lashley. He's already beaten Drew McIntyre. McIntyre is being chased off. Bobby Lashley is taking time away. So the next steps are Seth Rollins and then Roman Reigns. That's how you build a new champion. Like, legitimately, that is definitely how you build a new champion. Just throw him against the top names constantly. Goldberg as well has one more match. He could work that against Big E as well, and that would definitely help to make it clear who is the absolute top of the ladder. Sean says, Peter Insider says that Bianca versus Becky is opening Raw. If true, what will be the main event? Now, I appreciate you sourcing that, Sean. However, Peter Insider, to my knowledge, did not say that before the WWE said that themselves. It's been announced openly by the WWE to my knowledge. And when it comes to the main event, I'm really not sure. I suspect it might be more Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. This, as we've come to expect from the WWE, is a ratings grab. And not a bad one. You know, it's not a bad one. So it will definitely draw viewership, and I'll very much take it. Anan says your pick for the members of Team Raw and Team Smackdown men's and women's team match at Survivor Series. I should write these down. So for the women's on Smackdown, Sasha Banks, Sonya Deville, Shayna Baszler, Naomi, and I picked someone else in the start of S. Shotzi Blackheart. They all have storylines. They're all involved at the moment. It is logical to put them all onto one team and have them implode. On the Raw side, I would have Bianca Belair leading, even though Rhea Ripley will be teasing a lead, as well as Nikki Cross. It gets a bit more confused after that because not many people on Raw are really being used all that much. So I'm going to say Zelina Vega and Doudrop. I think they'll be the logical next steps, at least until Alexa Bliss returns a little bit later in the year. When it comes to the men's, I still believe that Seth Rollins will be captaining the men's team. I definitely think that's going to happen. And it will feature... It's hard to say. You could literally just put all of the Hurt Business in there. But I think it's definitely going to feature AJ Styles. It's definitely going to feature Omos. I would put Bobby Lashley in there, but I think he won't return from his hiatus until after that. Edge definitely won't be there. I'm really not sure. Really not sure. Thanks for jumping in, Sean. I appreciate that. We'll see you for spoiler warning a little bit later. On the SmackDown side, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Baron Corbin are basically locks. There's a number of others that could be involved. I'd like to see Ricochet, but I don't really want to commit too hard on that one. Ed says, thoughts on kayfabe suspensions and fines after the IWC taking the piss out of WWE fining Lesnar? $1 million. Why did I commit so hard to that? Either way, that's the thing that happened. Apparently, this is as a face as well. You know many face wrestlers, many good guys who can easily afford $1 million? Do you know many actual good guys who can do that? Because I don't. I can't afford a $1 million fine. I can't. Brock Lesnar can, easily. It's not really a good guy element. But they need to keep Brock Lesnar on TV, as it were, because as a face, if you're not turning up for weeks on end, months on end, as Brock Lesnar does, as a good guy, why are you the good guy? It does not make much sense. Before we go on, I'd just like to say, for anyone potentially new joining us, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. We do daily wrestling news videos, and today's news video, which will have just been released, is about Dakota Kai and why she's staying in NXT. In addition, you can click like on this video. It will be a big help to our individual growth and the growth of the channel as well. Little pieces of engagement like that make a massive difference that really cannot be quantified. I always seem to have slightly more viewers than I do likes, and it really does make a huge difference. So please do consider subscribing if you haven't and clicking that like button. In the meantime, let's do a little talk about the rumour look back. Now, for those who aren't aware, on CagesideSeats.com, they have a rumour look back where they look back over the top rumours that they reported themselves from about 6 months previous. So about 6 months beforehand. They then say, were these accurate? Are these accurate? Are these trustworthy? To try and encourage you to find out, who you can trust when it comes to wrestling news. So I like to read these out, have a look, see what's been proven and what hasn't, and just see, just see how much of an impact has been made by these particular ones. So I'm going to fly through some of these and then come back to the questions. We are Ask Me Anything. Please do continue to ask as many questions as you have to ask. April 24th, 2021. It opens by saying there's a lot of speculation, including from The Observer, that Randy Orton suffered a shoulder injury during his match with Riddle on Raw this week. He didn't, that is not the case, but they do say that there's a lot of speculation. What's happening is that they've basically said at the beginning, this rumour might not be true, but we're going to report it anyway. You can tell it was a slow news day because the next one is Ringside News claims Vince McMahon wanted fresh eyes on the product and on management, and that's part of what led to so much change within the company recently. That is what I personally will refer to as a nothing report. Basically, what Ringside News is saying there is that there's a reason the company changed recently. Yeah, we know. We're aware of that. Fightful Select says a long-time WWE name, I don't know what that means, thinks Mark Carrano will be back with WWE simply because he knows where the bodies are buried. Also, has not happened. Let's move on to April 26th. The Roman Reigns vs Daniel Bryan title match on Smackdown next week is expected to lead to Reigns vs Cesaro, though it's unclear exactly how. The Observer noted there are many possible directions on the table. That is exactly what happened. We did then move to Cesaro versus Roman, but it was a piece of information that I was reporting over on Spoiler Warning weeks and months in advance of WrestleMania that we were going to move on afterwards to Roman versus Cesaro. Wow, okay, there's a lot going on here. A lot going on. Randy Orton apparently suffered a deep bruise to his shoulder in his match with Riddle last week per Fightful Select. Once again, he didn't miss any time. There was no bruise visible. It's really hard to say one way or the other with this one. But they do also mention via Fightful Select that this is from April 27th, so before RK Bro, saying those backstage in WWE said Orton was in favour of working with Riddle and the changes made. So that's a definite correct, even though the previous one is questionable at best. There is a lot of stuff here that hasn't been proven one way or the other. Here's one. Drew McIntyre is still pushing for a match with Tyson Fury, leading to obvious speculation WWE still hopes to get that together in the near future. 6 months on, nothing's happened. We'll see whether or not it actually does. Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that the early things that I've been told is the new NHL deal with Turner isn't going to affect AEW. It literally forced AEW to move to TBS, so not entirely sure as to whether or not that is accurate. It's not. Okay, what else has been actually proven? Okay. Based on WWE describing Friday's Universal title match by saying if Bryan loses he'll be banished from SmackDown, speculation is Daniel Bryan will lose and move to another brand. He left the company entirely and went to AEW. Here's the thing. Once again, what they're reporting here is, oh, there's speculation. That's not news. This is just rumours. Just constant rumours. It was a really slow news week that week. It really was. PW Insider reported that Road Dogg was at the CWC working on this week's NXT. It's his first week back since being hospitalised after a cardiac arrest in March. And I definitely wanted to read that one out as well, just for the sake of being able to say it. Because why not? Oh, here's a fun one. WWE planned to not feature Sasha Banks for a while after WrestleMania, according to Ringside News. Nope, that was according to me several weeks before they said it. Their source says it's to let Belair and Bayley have the spotlight, and so when Sasha attacks Belair, it'll mean something. Once again, they are quoting Ringside News. The actual report several weeks before that was from yours truly. Closing that. And let's catch up with the questions that we've had. This is an Ask Me Anything stream, so if you have questions, by all means, please do jump in. After the next run of questions, I will be previewing Raw, and then I'll be wrapping up. Sean says, do you think Greg Hamilton will get signed by another company? Not sure. It depends on whether or not he wants to at this point, to be fair. I think he'll get offers of work, but I don't think they'll be long-term offers. Ed says, who would replace Sasha if Sasha takes the belt from Charlotte going into pay-per-view? Charlotte would. Charlotte would end up on the team with all the other women. one of the reasons I don't think it's going to happen at this point. Kervin says, SmackDown dark match. Raquel Gonzalez beat Toni Storm. Can you see Raquel coming to the main roster? I can see it more now that she's getting the tryouts, but I don't personally think she's either ready or necessary, but who knows. And then said, last week's Raw, WWE experimented with a character change for Damian Priest, and I think it worked well. Do you think WWE will continue to build his character in this direction, or they will return to the old gimmick? A little bit of both. I think they were teasing us a little bit to see how fans reacted to that incarnation of John Morrison. Fans reacted well, so we're probably going to see more of it in future. Ed says, thoughts on John Meltzer Morrison Halloween costume and the thread he posted as a caption to the photo. It was marvellous. Absolutely fantastic. Can I just tell you? More of that, please. There are a lot of people in the WWE who really, really do not like Dave Meltzer. And it's nice that every now and then they're able to express themselves. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Kevin says, can you see a new Raw Women's Champion tonight? Absolutely not. Anand says, update on Bray Wyatt. He is now a free agent officially. Would he go to Impact? If Impact would sign him, then yes. At this point in time, there are offers on the table. It's up to him basically deciding where to go. But he wants to make sure what actually happens is what he wants to happen. The big sticking point in Bray Wyatt's contract negotiations everywhere he goes, pardon me, is that he wants control over the entire storyline that he will play out. Nobody's bitten. Yeah, I worry that nobody will bite for it. And also says, from Ring of Honor's current roster, whom would you like to see return to WWE? And is there any chance that someone from Ring of Honor will make a surprise return at the Royal Rumble? That would be a debut rather than a return. I think we might see Jay Lethal, but I think that's about as far as we'd go. And even then, he'd be used more as a cruiserweight. I think we may get some appearances at the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble's a good time for it, so that's a really good call. I don't think we'll see many, but I definitely think we'll see some. Let's talk about what's going to happen on Raw. We've covered Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, and this is something that after an initial feud, the plan was to let it cool off until mid next year. They've gone a little bit too hot on it in the lead up to Survivor Series, but once again, they are trying to create the feel, the vibe as it were, that what's actually going to happen is that the championship is going to change hands and we're going to end up with Bianca versus Charlotte for Survivor Series. At this point in time, the plan is still Becky versus Charlotte for Survivor Series, with a possibility, of course, that it would end up being taken off of Charlotte if Charlotte is not able to convince the WWE that she will be able to behave. The WWE are confident at this point that Charlotte will be okay, but they have Banks there as a backup plan. If at any point the WWE announce a championship match between Sasha and Charlotte randomly out of the blue, expect Charlotte to lose it. When it comes to Becky versus Bianca, however, this will essentially be the end of the feud, at least for now, and a couple more weeks. Survivor Series will be a refresh of a lot of things. Bianca Belair is likely to move down the roster a little bit. My suspicion is that we will soon see the return of Alexa Bliss, which will then lead to Bliss versus Bianca going forwards, and we could potentially see Becky versus Doudrop or something of that nature. Seth Rollins has, of course, earned the right to battle Big E. This match was for some point in the future. Just some point in the future. I'm very interested to see when it actually arrives, because the most telling thing about the match is when it happens. If it's before Survivor Series, there's practically no chance of Seth Rollins winning. But if it's at, say, the Royal Rumble, then he's got a pretty strong chance of winning. I would expect dueling promos tonight, and maybe a contract signing before we then move on to something else later on. We didn't see AJ Styles last week. There's no news as to why that was, but Randy Orton and Matt Riddle went up against the Dirty Dogs instead. With no alternatives in the offer and Omos being involved once again, the plan seems to be that we will still have that rematch once AJ Styles is able to perform. We don't know where AJ Styles was. It seems like a personal issue. I won't be going into it. Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross still have no challenges. And John Morrison still has a very strange storyline. Carmella has been doing her I'm pretty thing. And she's had no reason to get in the ring all that much. That said, Zelina Vega at the top of the mid-card of the women's division could be a lot of fun. So my expectation is that we'll see quite a lot of Zelina Vega fielding challenges for the crown over the next few weeks. We also saw the evolution of the Damian Priest character that will continue this week. Also, I've got to say, T-Bar, or Dominik Dijakovic, had a good showing last week, so I'm excited if we get a rematch. I would like a rematch. We saw a lot of people use last week on Raw and this week on Smackdown who do not necessarily get a lot of TV time. So I was very happy with most of that. We saw the Bearcat in action last week. He defeated Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin ran away. This week my expectation is that Keith Lee will take on Shelton Benjamin. If you'd like more news on what's happening with the Bearcat, by all means check out my video on Keith Lee about how he's going to be used going forwards. There was no Karrion Kross. Hopefully, we're going to see something from him. But once again, I also have a video on Karrion Kross explaining that they've basically doomed him to fail at this point. He's off TV while they work out what his new gimmick will look like. Austin Theory will continue to be heavily featured. We had Dominic Mysterio losing last week. This week, we could have Rey Mysterio losing. I'd be okay with it. Austin Theory is getting a genuine push, but how far up, I'm not sure. Is he potentially United States Championship material? I don't think he's there yet, but I don't think it's impossible. And finally, we had Kevin Owens, Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio all involved in a fantastic ladder match main event last week. This week, it doesn't seem clear what's going to happen next. Like, genuinely, what's actually going to happen next for Finn Balor, for Kevin Owens, for Rey Mysterio? My hope is that after the ladder match, we move into a feud between Kevin Owens and Finn Balor, with Finn Balor picking up a much-needed win, and Kevin Owens, who looks to be on his way out of the company, simply on his way out of the company. We will continue to have some build towards Survivor Series as we move closer to the moment of truth for brand versus brand. But in the meantime, Raw will be mostly built around the title matches. The Women's Championship match and of course the WWE Championship match. Because right now the WWE have one very clear plan. Make the focus Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins so that they can be built enough to give people the rub come WrestleMania. Ed says, I would love to see Matt Taven in WWE or mostly in NXT. I don't think he's main roster material at the moment in WWE's eyes. Especially with what happened with Kingdom. Like, all of the rest of them have had very bad experiences in WWE. Ed says, Mox's book is #1 in pre-sales from Amazon already, ahead of its release tomorrow, which is incredible. And Ed says, Mox doesn't like Kevin Dunn much. No, not many in WWE do. Like, genuinely. I'll be talking about that a little bit later. Anand says, do you think there would be any possible title changes before Survivor Series, except for Charlotte losing to Sasha or Nakamura losing to Corbin? No, you've called out the ones that I've said I believe are likely or possible. Outside of that, I don't believe there'll be any title changes. Jermaine says, hi Tom, Becky versus Bianca if it ends with Becky winning, then this hurts Bianca really bad. I say this because you would have had Bianca lose 3 title matches in 2 weeks. Yeah, I agree. I think they protect Bianca Belair quite a lot by having distraction finishes, but they're overexposing her, which is a risk. You have to consider the possibility that her star will wane because of this. Batman says, when does Bianca get her win back at Becky? Oh, she probably won't. She probably won't. Jermaine says, if not tonight, it's probably at a major pay-per-view like the Royal Rumble. I do think Becky versus Bianca will be a feud that stops closer to Survivor Series, and we come back to it later next year. Like mid next year, nearly fall next year is what I'm seeing. I think it'll be the SummerSlam match. I definitely do think it'll be the SummerSlam match. So we have no more questions. If anyone has not done so yet, please do remember to click subscribe, at least for the time being. We are operating at a new time in the US and a new time everywhere outside of the UK until the US catches up. But outside of the UK and the US, this is the new time that we will be streaming. Spoiler warning, we'll still be at 10 p.m. UK time, but that will be 6 p.m. US time. So, well, Eastern time in the US. So please do consider that. WWE Raw will be at the same time for the US viewers, whereas here in the UK, it will be 1 hour earlier. I'll be starting the show at quarter to midnight my time. Please be aware of that and turn on your notifications at twitch.tv/Tom Colohue to make sure you do not miss a show. Until then, I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.